Yes, boxing heights, boxing beats and rhymes again, man. Yeah, I was just watching this documentary about Ali and Frazier, the first fight. And the video I'm making now is not about Ali and Frazier, it's not about their fights. It's about Ali. It's about the myth about the phantom punch. Because while I was watching the documentary, they showed the old fight reel of Ali. I think he was an amateur at the time, because I've seen amateur fights of Ali where he didn't have a vest on. So I assume that could have been the norm at times then to fight amateur fights without a vest. So I'm assuming it was an amateur fight, because I see most of his fight reels and I didn't recognize this fight. And it's a similar punch he's done a few times. He's fighting a dark-skinned fighter and the guy was pressing him hard, and Ali was moving backwards. And then left uppercut, man. Just decked the guy while he was moving backwards. And you see, boxing is a brutal sport, but certain boxers turn it into a fine art. Roy Jones has a very similar skill set, because theoretically, you're not really supposed to be able to get leverage to throw proper power shots while you're moving backwards, theoretically. But what I'm saying is these guys are in the matrix. They're on some God level. It's not just skipping, hitting the punch bag and speedball. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. You have to be a visionary. I know it sounds metaphysical, but it is metaphysical, and you have to deal with it. Yeah? So when you're saying that, oh, that fight was fixed with Liston, it wasn't fixed. It wasn't fixed. Because like I'm saying, I just saw that amateur fight there, the first time I saw that punch. Okay? And he decked the German challenger, Karl Mildenberger, I can't remember his name, doing the same thing, moving backwards. He decked Cleveland Williams with the same punch, moving backwards, right? If you're able to right now, get up and do some shadow boxing, pretend you're Ali going backwards and try to throw a power punch. And bear in mind, you have no opponent in front of you. See how difficult it is just to even do it with no opponent in front of you. Okay? When Bruce Lee used to throw them half-inch punches, it's not a myth. There are men who could actually crack your rib cage with a half-inch punch. It's not a myth. It's mind over matter. It is the occult. Right? This ain't no basic, yeah, I'm a fighter, I could have been a contender, I'm gonna go do my No. When Roy Jones fought Glenn Kelly, I'm sure most of you seen it, when he went against the ropes and he had his hands at the back of him, and then from somewhere, a right hook came out and he knocked the guy out. Look. You can bang that speedball all day. You can run 100 miles. You can't do that. You won't be able to do it. You won't be able to do it. There is no boxing manual to teach you how to punch while your back's against the ropes moving backwards. There isn't. And it won't be, unless someone's into boxing and metaphysics. You know what I mean? That's the only way. And before you think this is some pro-black mumbo-jumbo metaphysics, no. Europeans have tapped into it already. They've tapped into that shit. But they won't call it metaphysics. Ghetto metaphysics. They won't call it that. They'll probably just label it under sports science or something like that. Like javelin throwers. I was watching a documentary on it years back on video before internet. And I think it was some Scandinavian javelin throwers. And what they was doing is when they was injured, they wouldn't train as hard for certain periods because there's no point. You're smashing your body up. That's all you're doing. So what they were doing, they was getting videos of their best throws or someone else's best throws. And they was just examining the throw, watching it. And then they'd go back and lie down. And they'd just be dreaming about the throw, visualizing the throw, visualizing it from maybe even when you walk out of the dressing room into the Olympic arena or whatever, you're just, that's metaphysics, man. That's metaphysics. Envisioning your greatness and then becoming it. It gets no realer than that.
When someone says the rich gets richer, visualize wealth and put yourselves in the picture.
When you're a little kid and you have your first fight, what do? You put your head down and you just wail away. You just wail away. And whatever sticks to the wall sticks. That's what you do. That's what you do. That kind of fighting doesn't take courage. Doesn't take courage. What takes courage is trusting your brain and not brawn to fight for you. It takes real courage. In the laws of physics, putting your hands behind your back with your chin exposed and then knocking someone out. It's not really in there. Learning to shoulder roll defense, to stick with the jab from 1 round till 12 and be disciplined, that takes courage. To meet brute force with finesse takes a different mindset. And look, I love Sonny Liston. I love Mike Tyson. I love them to death. But to a degree, their style of fighting relies on mental bullying. It does. It does. Right? If you're fighting Sonny Liston for the World Heavyweight Championship, you're in your dressing room, you're feeling good. But you know what that can be like sometimes? It's like a marathon. When you're in your dressing room and you hit the wall in your dressing room because all of a sudden you're feeling good, your body's fit and everything. Then bam, you hit the wall. Damn, I'm fighting that beast, man. What the fuck am I gonna do? Your training can't prepare you for that moment, man. Can't prepare you. Doesn't matter how much press-ups you've done, man. How much your brethren have been big in you. Can't prepare you for that. You're fighting the beast. They said his knuckles were like hams. His hands were like fucking hams, man. Sonny's hands were like hams. Biggest fist, I think, for a heavyweight champion or something. You have to fight him. You got a few choices. Run out the arena and don't fight him. Or you say, fuck it. I'm probably going to lose anyway. Let me just go in there and see if I can outgame him. Or you stick to your boxing plan and you try to outbox him. Now, the first option, running out the stadium, it's a bitch move. If you're a boxer, that's a bitch move. Let's throw that out. Second option, I'm going to try and outgame him. Yeah, maybe. Some guy named Marshall beat Liston on points and broke his jaw before Ali beat him. But I'm not sure if he outslugged him to do that or if he outboxed him. But I will say to 99% of boxers, if you've got a boxing coach who tells you to go out there and slug toe-to-toe with Sonny Liston, I would get rid of your coach right now because he's going to get you hurt. And badly too. You know what I mean? Let's face it. Third option. Okay, I've hit the wall. I've got to fight this dude. But I spent 2 hours a day on my left jab. Yeah? I know I can throw punches, good shots, while I'm moving backwards. I know if I have to trade shots with him, I have the mental fortitude to do that. I'm not stupid to think I can fight a whole 50-round campaign against Sonny Liston and not have to trade at some stage. Unless I get an early knockout. I'm ready for this. That's courage. And walking into the arena with that mindset is courage. It's not buying a lottery ticket, a lucky dip lottery ticket, hoping the world loves you and is going to give you something for not putting the work in. So when I hear people saying, oh, there's no way a punch that weak could have knocked out, listen, yes it can. And it did. You know what I'm saying? Yes, it did. I mean, Ali was already in the Nation of Islam, the most hated group in the world. Do you think America would have allowed Ali to gain such an advantage, political advantage in the world? Come on, man. You gotta use your brain a bit, man. Use your brain a bit, man. It wasn't a fixed fight. It wasn't a fixed fight. Ali was one of the most hated. He was in the FBI files. We were alongside Malcolm X and Elijah Muhammad. He was right in there. COINTELPRO and that shit. Edgar Hoover. Learn your history a bit. You use your brain. Before you just yap off. It wasn't a fixed fight. And it wasn't a weak punch either. Ali proved in both fights he could outmaneuver. Listen, if you outmaneuver someone and you hit them with a punch they can't see, do you know how devastating that is? Do you really believe you need that much power to knock someone if they don't see the punch? You're just not living in the real fucking world, man. You're just not living in the real... Like I was watching a video with Michael Mora. He was fighting a guy who looks a bit like Tyson. I think it's supposedly Tyson's cousin. Is it Cliff something? And Mora took him out. And all the comments below, oh, fight's fixed, man, because someone get knocked out with short, little weak punches. It wasn't weak, they were short punches. They were short punches. Them guys practice on the heavy bag to throw short punches because you can't see short punches. If you wind up shots from the back of the arena, you can see that shot, right? And you could, even though it's impossible, you could keep your hands down and let that punch hit you. And okay, if it's a really powerful punch, it will knock you out. But more than likely, because your nerves are awaiting that punch to come, it's not going to do as much damage as if you can't see it. It's physics. You can't physically knock yourself out. Did you know that? You cannot physically knock yourself out with a punch. You can't do it. Not intentionally anyway, because all the nerves in your body, from your face to your fist or any other body part, they're all interconnected. And the bigger point is, the more aware you are of a punch coming at you, the better you can take it. When Sugar Ray Robinson knocked out Gene Fullmer, Fullmer had never been flawed in numerous amounts, not even flawed, not even really hurt badly in a fight. But it was like an electric shock almost, that left hook, because it traveled a few inches. And it was bam, out. Pure precision. He's not no barroom brawler, Sugar Ray Robinson. You're dealing with an elite athlete. Timing, rhythm is everything. It's like athletics, for instance. The commentators are so stupid. Like, let's take Usain Bolt, for instance, when he's running 9.58. You hear the commentators, oh, this is an incredible time. How does he do it? And he's not even putting effort into it. I'm sure if he really pushed it hard, he could run 8 point... No. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. If he starts really exerting his arms and his neck to get more power into it, he'll lose power. He will lose power. His timing and rhythm. That's why even when you see black people dancing, they don't boof, 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 dance to every beat. Groove. Get into the groove of the music. That's where that is. You know? That's being in touch with sensuality and shit like that. I know men in masculine don't like to talk about shit like that. But that's why black men like dancing when they go to clubs. A lot of white guys don't like to dance when they go to clubs. They don't like that. You know what I mean? I think that's dying out in black males as we get more Europeanized. But black guys used to love dancing in clubs, man. That was our thing. That's dying out because I think we're more self-conscious of shit now. That's being European. That's what it is. We're getting that conservative attitude. Except we don't wear suits. We'll just stand up and look tough. You know what I mean? In designer clothes now. You know what I mean? And you just have to watch James Brown, Michael Jackson, Chuck Berry. And you can just see that it's just a spiritual love for the music that brings out them moves. And I'm not really a knowledgeable basketball fan, but I used to watch NBA years back on Channel 4, especially when Jordan's day. And man, when you used to just watch them guys, you'd watch European basketball. And it was just two different sports. It was just two different sports, man. I think they've caught up a little now, but it was just two different sports. Like the movement. And dudes like Pippen, Jordan. I think I used to watch Olajuwon and them guys and Reggie Miller. Them guys. I remember Chicago Bulls, Celtics. Don't ask me to reel off no more teams and shit like that because I'm not that familiar, I'll admit that. But I just used to be entranced by the spectacle. And I used to watch it every Saturday without fail. And all I used to think is, this is the same game they play on the ball courts in the hood out there. But now they're on a big stage and getting paid a whole heap of money in the big arena with crowds and television behind it. But it's no different from the hood, basically. See, back in the day when you used to go to Jamaica and they used to play soccer, what they'd do is they'd make the goals really small. So it was hard to score, really small goals, because the emphasis wasn't on the score. The emphasis was on the skills you could produce on the pitch, not the score. The score is a capitalistic model, a European concept, if you like, where the only way you can see the merit of what you've done is by the scoreline, you know? But the scoreline doesn't always tell the full picture, you see. It doesn't. It doesn't always tell the full picture. I remember years back, there was a boxing match, a super middleweight match. And there was a black fighter. He had a stupid name. His name was Slugger O'Toole. Or something. I think his proper name was Fidel Castro. I think that was his actual government name or something. And he was fighting Henry Wharton. Wharton was unbeaten, and he was favored to run over this guy and steamroll him. And the guy just put on a boxing display, man. Beautiful boxing display. Just outboxed Wharton, outboxed him for the whole fight. Wharton just tried and kept coming forward, throwing punches, missing. My man was just countering, using the angles, and they gave the fight to Wharton. But everyone clearly saw who was the better boxer. And O'Toole faded into obscurity, and Wharton went on to fight for world titles. He never won, but he got 2 or 3 cracks. And I'm not going to be a biased person, right? Because there's 2 ways you can look on a fight like that. You could give it to the guy who's really aggressive, but not really landing, but he was making the fight. So you can give the guy the fight like that, or you could give it to the guy who's using the more cultured boxing, landing his shots, not getting hit. You know, because O'Toole didn't, again, the way he boxed, he didn't fatigue. He didn't gas. So it might have looked to them that, oh, he's not pushing it. He looks too at ease with his boxing for him to be winning the fight. You see, and what you have to realize is when you get in the business aspect of it, O'Toole didn't have no fan base. He didn't have the black community behind him. You know, no one beating the drum for him. He can't sell a ticket. All the tickets were sold behind Wharton. All the promotion is behind Wharton. If they gave it to my man, there could have been a riot in the hall. There could have been. And if they gave it to O'Toole, would Chris Eubanks have defended his WBO title against him because O'Toole couldn't sell out my bedroom, in all truth. Just couldn't, you know what I mean? And like, you know, what you have to realize, if you're into pro sport, the money aspect has to come into it. That's just how that is. That's why in the UK, Frank Bruno is one of the most successful boxers from a financial level to come out of the country. Frank Bruno won one world title fight against Oliver McCall. One. But he had an affinity with the public. Lennox Lewis defended his title multiple times in the 90s. And he could probably walk down the high road, even at his peak, and not get mobbed. That's the truth of it. He probably wouldn't get mobbed. Bruno couldn't do that. Bruno couldn't do that. He would need security everywhere, you know? See, but the thing is, Lennox was a chess player. Lennox was a defensive fighter who could attack. He was a box puncher, as they say. He was a thinking fighter, you know? He wouldn't fight with his face. Whereas Bruno in the interview would probably say to the public before the fight, I am going to give it my all. When he says that, he means he's going to put his body into it. Lennox is going to put his brain into it. Them kind of things don't bring you close to the British public. That kind of attitude, you know? It makes you distant from them. Plus, he used to go Jamaica a lot. And he probably gave off the impression that he was more a rice and peas man than a pie and chips man. Like, pie and chips is an English dish. Rice and peas, Jamaican dish, if those who don't know. You know what I mean? So his lifestyle and his boxing style doesn't really relate to the average Englishman who goes to the pub. Like Ricky Hatton's diet and his drinking habits and his boxing style, perfect. He relates to the guys in the pub, the football terraces, etc., etc. But this was a two-sided coin for Ricky, which I've stated in previous videos, because he'd fight to the level of his fans. That's what I used to think. He'd go in and slug when he really shouldn't have done, you know? And he can box a lot better than sometimes he shows. But it was just that pub mentality, that alcohol mentality, that British football terrace mentality to go in there head first and just wail out and whatever. But that's that, you know? You see, lifestyle and culture, it does really play a massive part in sports. It really does. It really does. Because let's stick with Lennox Lewis. Lewis is a man who would listen to dub music, you know what I mean? Like Rastaman music, that's deep thinking music, you know what I'm saying? That man is preaching Jah. I mean, Concrete Lion, Judah, Selassie, and them kind of vibes there. You know what I mean? And that puts him on a spiritual vibe. And that comes out in his boxing. It comes out in his boxing. He doesn't box like a wild man. He boxes like a man who knows his destiny and knows where he came from. He's not one of them brainwashed black men who sees the paintings that Michelangelo painted of Jesus and say, yeah, I'm a Christian, I believe in that. When you must be the dumbest fuck to do that. He believes in Jah. Jah! He believes in it. He goes further than belief. He knows Jah is there to protect him in the ring. He knows that. That's why he's able to have a long career. That's why he's able to have the confidence in himself to say, yeah, I can box behind my jab for 12 rounds. I don't have to go to my lower vibrational base and fight like a little boy and wail my hands away. You know what I mean? I can use my footwork. These are all valid ways for me to express myself in the ring. You see, sluggers generally don't have long careers, whether they're white or black. They generally don't, because if you put yourself in a position where you're willing to take 3 to land 1. Just do the maths. Just do the basic physiology of the argument, man. And you'll come up with whatever answer you need to come up with. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know some of you probably think, well, Roberto Duran had a long career. He was a slugger. Well, he wasn't really a slugger. Yeah, he did slug some fights, but he was a master boxer as well. He was a master boxer. Go and watch him fight Iran Barkley. He was a master boxer. He had a great jab. He had great timing. He was great at feinting. You know, that's a misconception. Marvin Hagler. No, he wasn't just a slugger. He started as a pure boxer. Go and watch some of the old fights, man. Or look it up on the websites if you don't believe me. I know this shit because I've followed the sport for a long time. You know what I mean? I know that shit. And what you have to realize is, I'm not, as I'm saying, I'm generalizing. So it's not in every case, but that philosophy where you're willing to take more punches than you land is more than likely going to be a destructive trait in your personal life. You know? Like, I don't know Bernard Hopkins. I've never met the guy once, but just watching him box and the economical style of his boxing, I'm just watching Bernard and I'm thinking, I bet you Bernard don't spend his money frivolously. I bet you any money. You know? To a degree, he still lives like he hasn't got all that dough. And he will till the day he's dead. I remember when his coach, Nassim, was telling that story where, I don't know if they was in the gym or they was somewhere, and a woman came into their surroundings and she was the only woman there. And the lights went out. Power cut. Bernard ran out the building. Ran out the building. Then they asked him, yo, what do you run out the building for? One woman in the building, power cut, lights go out. I'm the most famous guy here. If anything alleges of a sexual assault nature, who's going to get it? Him. He's thinking that far ahead, dude. Yeah, he's thinking that far ahead. That's obviously time he spent in jail and wisening up to saying he doesn't want to get caught up in the system again. And, you know, that's influenced his boxing style and his personal life. How old is dude? 46. Once again, he doesn't think like a European, even though he lives in a European system. He's 46 and still fighting for world titles. Held world titles up to his 46, man. That's because he's not letting society's norms define him. You know? He's not letting that happen, man. And you see, just switching the topic again, but still on the same topic, you can't lump all European fighters in the same category. Because you get American fighters, American Europeans, and British Europeans. Traditionally, their strongest fighters are sluggers, like Rocky Marciano, Jack Dempsey. Sluggers. That's what they're good at. The last two white British fighters to hold world titles and be really popular, sluggers. Ricky Hatton, Joe Calzaghe. All right, granted, Joe Calzaghe could probably box a little more than Ricky, but he relied on volume punches to get his victories. You know? And now, one of the more popular British fighters is Matthew Macklin. Half English, half Irish. Now look at, you get the fighting Irish. Look at all the top Irish fighters. Macklin, Ward, McGuigan. They're not called the fighting Irish for nothing. They will slug. I mean, the recent top non-white British fighters. Amir Khan, boxer, can't fight inside to save his life. Junior Witter, former WBC light welterweight champion. He's an awkward counterpuncher. That's who he is. But then, as I said, you can't lump all the Europeans in the box. If you go over to Russia, Klitschko's defensive fighters, Costa Zoo would try and read your punches and look for the counters. Boxer. What about Dmitry Pirog? Boxer puncher. Far from a slugger. And that's because, I suppose, they're growing up in the Soviet Union. They've always had that amateur boxing program, which instilled their ethos on boxing. I remember, I haven't seen much amateur boxing from the Soviet Union recently, because they split up all the countries. But before, you'd watch them fight, the amateur boxers from the Soviet Union, you're thinking, I could beat this guy, he doesn't look like shit. And when you get in a ring with them guys, they're fucking hard to beat, man. Really hard to beat. The stances look awkward, but they're really hard to beat. You know? And then when you go over to Cuba now, they just produce the most purest amateur boxers you can get. You know what I mean? Like world champions and Olympic champions everywhere. And these guys, again, rhythm, timing, flawless. That's all you can say. That's all you can say. They don't fatigue. They don't throw wild punches. And the few that cross over in the boats to the US are normally top-class pros. Now, America is the dominant capital of boxing. And if you hear most television networks, HBO, I'm going to say, and Larry Merchant, he'll always talk about, oh, he's a boring fighter, he's not an exciting fighter. He'll say shit like, he doesn't deserve a major fight with his style of fighting because he's not exciting enough. And he won't take into account that this guy's fighting top-notch opposition and beating them comfortably and not taking a whole load of punishment doing it, which, as BGZ pointed out the other day, which needs to be reiterated, the game is about hitting and not being hit. And then you go over to a German fight card. And as I keep repeatedly pointing out, is that they have a very reserved and conservative approach to spectating boxing. And this is reflected in the fighters, because the fighters don't really go for the crash and bang them up type of fights either. They're very cautious. They're more prone to counterpunch and shit like that. And before you say Arthur Abraham, yeah, he's a crash and bang him up, he's not German. He's Armenian. And if you look at a lot of Eastern Bloc countries, like they're shrouded in that covert spy shit, that espionage sort of shit, you know, that heavy, censored sort of vibe you get, whether these are mass stereotypes or generalizations, they have some truth to them. They do have some truth to them. And yes, it does come out in how they approach sport, do sport, and how they do business. So the boxers are cautious, they're skillful. Like I say, they've had that amateur program, the Soviet Union. And it's not unlike Cuba. They're not as fluid as Cuban boxers, but they're both communist countries where they have a mistrust of Western philosophy. And once again, it could be a stereotype, but there's always that feeling that these communist countries are joined up in thinking of, yes, we have to protect the national interests before personal fulfillment. Whereas in America and Britain, they like to give off this impression that we are a free society. Even though we know if you really express that you're not patriotic to the colonial bullshit they deal with, you're getting fucked up. But I guess if you go along with their concept of freedom, which is a bunch of faggots on television and drinking until your head want bus out or whatever, and access to porn sites, which is not censored on the net and shit, yeah, if that's your freedom, then that's freedom. And eating junk food and shit like that, okay, you're free. You're free. And if you're really materialistic minded, okay, yeah, you're free. Like I'm saying, you're free. And I suppose that reflects their affinity with the slugger in the boxing ring. Yeah, just go out there and take it. Force it. You know what I mean? Victory is more important than any righteous philosophy. That type of style of fight. You know what I mean? But that's just an opinion. Asian fighters, Japanese, Chinese, Malaysian, Philippines, wherever, you know? Thailand. And let's really talk about the weight classes where they're effective. Flyweight, bantamweight, probably no more than featherweight do you get really great fighters from the Asian continent. Now, they're from warrior backgrounds, I mean, a lot of these countries. And obviously, the martial arts thing as well. They're no stranger to fighting, hand-to-hand combat, you know? A lot of the population of the world is influenced by martial arts. And a lot of these countries, again, generalization, stereotype, I'm trying to be diplomatic, but they're very heavily censored countries, and a lot of these countries have quite restrictive regimes, and they're quite cold. Some of these regimes are very aggressive. Like karate is all about inflicting force, you know what I mean? It's not a joke thing. And a lot of the Japanese fighters are quite forceful. I haven't got none to mind what I can remember. I normally do, but right now I'm drawing a blank. But if you watch a lot of the Asian fighters, it's all action fights. They're not afraid of punishment. They're not afraid of pain. And they're not queasy about dishing it out either. You know? And like, remember, Japan used to have kamikaze pilots and shit, man, you know what I mean? And the Kung Fu films are all about honor. It's all about honoring shit, debts and family members and revenge. And that shit is close to them. That's not a rumor. That is really close to them. You know, they don't take disrespect. You know what I mean? It's dishonorable trait. So you see a lot of the Asian fighters are aggressive, fast, very well conditioned, seek and destroy, you know? And the cultural thing with the Japanese, why they can't understand Floyd, is because they're very reserved and conservative, and they take humbleness as a really good character trait, while Floyd is African American, flamboyant, and he's outspoken. He doesn't let nothing silence him. He says what's in his mind at all times, you know? So they don't get that, and that's where the conflict is, especially if they're Manny fans. Now, the Latin fighter is quite a complex one to cover. I don't know if you class a Mexican fighter as a Latin fighter. I don't know. I'm not sure. But a Mexican fighter is traditionally a warrior, you know? A skilled inside fighter who can pick shots off on his glove, who knows how to keep his chin tucked in well, knows how to throw a good body shot and shit like that. But then you have the Puerto Rican, like guys like Wilfredo Benitez and Hector Camacho, who are defensive geniuses, you know? Highly skilled boxers, highly skilled. Some of the best you'll ever see doing defense. Like Wilfred Benitez, his nickname was the Ministry of Defense. He was that good in his prime. Hector Camacho at junior lightweight. I don't think you guys realize how good Hector was. Like, some of you might get the impression that he was just a runner. No, when he was a junior lightweight, he had excellent speed, timing, and power. Dude was a threat. Them days, he was a serious threat. Junior lightweight. When he moved up to lightweight, and he was still effective. He was still effective, but when he fought Rosario, and I think that was the first fight he got really hurt in his career, he seemed to get ultra cautious and ultra defensive, and it sort of blighted his potential. Still a very good fighter. Still a very good fighter. You know what I mean? No doubt about that. Then you have that volatile, arrogant streak in the Latin culture, which comes out in fighters like Duran and Brandon Rios, you know? Well, they'll shit talk with the best of the African American fighters, you know? But it's all down to subjective opinion. And I'd really like to hear your input on how racial and cultural factors play a part in the game, because it plays a part in what the fans expect from the boxers and sometimes what they demand. And it plays a part in how the boxers actually approach fights too. So this is Boxing Beats and Rhymes saying peace out. Peace.